How that's going. All right, well, if you are here, then you're here already, but if you're watching on the live stream, or you want to watch this later, or if you're here and you want to watch it later, or whatever the options are, welcome to an opportunity for us to have a conversation with an entrepreneur. And I'm excited to talk to Mandi Mitchell, President and CEO of LEDA. And on the one hand, there's like, you've done all that, but really I want to spend most of our time talking about your pre-life as an entrepreneur and what that was like. And but we can start off by, hey, give us the 2-minute blurb about LEDA and all the wonderful things that you're doing and why it's important to build this economic ecosystem.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, Jonathan and Kevin. I don't know where you are, but thank you as well. It's good to see everyone, and I see some familiar faces. I hope y'all have enjoyed this program so far. Is this the third and final?
This is. So we wrap up the Accelerate Women's program today. We still have operations to talk about, so
okay.
No one's off.
Nobody's dashing off.
No.
Well, I hope y'all have enjoyed the Accelerate Women's program and Accelerate Northside. These programs are unlike any other anywhere that I'm aware of in the state of Louisiana, and maybe in some other cities outside of the state, only because they replicated this program that was kicked off here by Kevin and Jonathan and Dr. Stewart. So count yourselves very fortunate to be in a community like Lafayette that has a university like UL Lafayette that believes in investing in entrepreneurs in our community. So for those who are not familiar with Lafayette Economic Development Authority, the organization has been around for over 50 years. I am the 4th CEO, technically 5th. There was an interim in there. First female and first minority to serve in this role. I've been there a little bit more than 3 years after working almost 10 years at the State Department of Economic Development. But I'm born and raised from here in Lafayette, proud alum of Northside High School, and then I went on to college out of town and made my way back home as soon as I possibly could, because I just love Lafayette, love our people, love our culture. But LEDA is the official economic development authority for Lafayette Parish. We are mostly known for business recruitment and business development and business retention. That's what is mostly covered in the media when you hear things like Topgolf or Safe Source Direct or Westfield Hydraulics or Buc-ee's, and you think, oh yeah, that's LEDA. And that, yes, that is what we do, is we go out there and market Lafayette in a positive light across the country to executives and to site selectors who are day in and day out making decisions on where they want to expand their business. And so that's a big part of what we do at LEDA, but that's not all that we do. So we also focus on retaining our existing businesses. We have what's called the Business Retention and Expansion Program. We have an entire team that's responsible throughout the year for visiting with existing employers to understand what challenges they may be facing. Beyond that, and very closely related, is workforce development. We have a team member who's been with us 17 years after 15 years at Louisiana Workforce Commission. And that team member of ours leads our workforce development strategy. So we have to be very closely plugged in to the needs of our current and future employers. And we communicate that to our higher ed partners here at UL, to South Louisiana Community College, to Acadiana Workforce Solutions, and to our high schools, particularly with career and tech education. We communicate to them what we see on the horizon are the trends and the needs in workforce development. And we work very closely with the state of Louisiana, both Louisiana Workforce Commission and a program called LED Fast Start on that. Beyond that, LEDA also provides small business support and what I call resource navigation. Whenever I had my own small business, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, I was a little bit aware of the programs and services that were available, but not as fully aware as I should have been. And so I found myself going door to door. This is what I need guidance. This is what I need help with. And really wasted a lot of time. And in some cases wasted some resources of my own doing things, not knowing that the state or some other entity could have provided X, Y, Z for free. So that's one of the things that we are very keen on at LEDA is when we are approached by small business owners or aspiring small business owners to make certain that they know what resources and programs exist in our small business ecosystem, where they can get funding support, where they can get technical assistance, where they can get peer-to-peer support through programs like Accelerate Northside and Accelerate Women's Entrepreneurship. And so beyond that, as of last year, LEDA is the official redevelopment authority for Lafayette Parish. What that is all about is making sure that older or distressed buildings, abandoned buildings, blighted properties, adjudicated properties, it's basically developing a strategy with other partners in the community to make sure that we bring private investment back to those facilities, because where there are broken windows, where there's vacant and abandoned properties, you can always find crime. And so we want to tackle that as well. So there are some other services that we provide that support businesses of all sizes. We do economic impact analyses. We do research that supports small, medium, and large businesses. We do site location assistance. Sometimes a business may not yet want to hire a realtor. It costs money to hire a realtor. They're in business and they should be paid for the work that they do. But sometimes a business is not there yet. They just want a cursory look at what buildings exist for lease or for sale or for rent. And they'll call us and we have access to those databases. So there's a lot that we do at LEDA. We also have within our umbrella business incubator for tech startups and tech-enabled startups, and it's called the Opportunity Machine. Not many people realize that that is a 100% LEDA-funded organization. They're in a separate building. They're in a building in downtown Lafayette, but that is a program of LEDA. So we have a lot that we do.
A lot of fingers in all kinds of pots.
Very comprehensive. Yeah. We have a team of about 20 people, and everybody has their specific area that they are trained in and responsible for.
Sure. And so, first of all, there's managing all of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I enjoy talking to you about and what I've loved learning more about is, before LEDA and before LED and before all this, you were working just like so many other people, just working. And you were doing some lobbying things in addition to working, and you had some people come to you, and again, it's sort of like so many other people, I think, who go through this similar journey of you're doing something, and then you have people who say, oh, you should do this like on your own. You should go out and start your own business doing that. Yeah. And so for you, what was that like? I mean, what was the initial, oh, maybe I could do this for me and not for someone else?
Yeah, that's a good question. So My training, my undergraduate training is engineering, and so I was doing that work for Bell South Telecommunications, and I'm telling my age. So who knows or even heard of Bell South?
Everybody just raise your hand just in case,
Okay.
even if you're just like, oh, that sounds a lot like Alexander Graham Bell.
So, it's so crazy the trajectory of the phone company. At one point it was Ma Bell, it was a regulated monopoly. Then it was broken up into these different companies, and then it slowly merged its way back to big AT&T.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I first started doing engineering work in New Orleans for Bell South. I did that for a while, got a master's, and then moved over into government relations / community relations. And I was a test case, by the way, because they normally would recruit people from the sales and marketing into that side, but into that side of the business. But they wanted to see if somebody with a technical background could be successful and useful for the company in that role, because oftentimes we would get big businesses or big government or essential services like hospitals, law enforcement that needed help.
And they have tech questions that a sales marketing person might not.
Yeah, so that was a weird jump career-wise for me, but I did it and it worked out well. So I did in-house government relations and community relations for a number of years. And part of my job was legislative lobbying, basically representing the phone company at the legislature, representing their priorities. And I made friends with a number of independent lobbyists. And they were in my ear saying, you do a really good job at this. Do you know you could do this on your own? You can even serve as a contractor for your former employer and other companies, meaning, cha-ching, more money. So I was like, okay, interesting. So anyway, a couple years passed by. I learned the ropes and everything. And at the time, I was covering 15 parishes and putting a lot of miles on my little Ford Explorer. I had all of Acadiana and all of Southwest Louisiana. And basically think about every community event, every occasionally city council meeting or meeting with legislators in 15 parishes. And as a single mom here, living back here in Lafayette, that wasn't too fun. And then the company was acquired by AT&T and a lot of changes started happening. So I said, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to test it out. So that was 2009. And I stepped out and started my own consulting firm doing business development consulting, government relations, and legislative lobbying.
And so whenever you did that, were you like, was this side hustle? Was this like, or was this cutting it off?
This was
like,
cutting it off.
You need to find us some insurance.
Yep, it was cutting it off. And it was, now thankfully I had friends that had been in the business working for themselves for years, and they laid it out. Yeah. They said, look, when you go out on your own, you're not getting that W-2 check every 2 weeks. You have to withhold your own taxes. You got to go find health insurance for yourself and make sure you're carving out that overhead out of your revenues from your clients, your future clients. Yeah. So that was a bit
the clients
scary.
You don't even have yet.
Clients, I had one.
The
now,
money
let me tell you,
don't even have yet.
I'm not that crazy. I was a little crazy, but not that crazy. And by the way, that was the most risky thing that I had ever done, was left a 8-to-5 job and started my own. But I did have a client before I left, and it was a statewide association of nonprofit family and youth service organizations. I had developed a rapport with the group, and they wanted to form a state association to represent them both at the federal and state level. And so I did. So I had a lifeline.
You have to justify your decision to me. Like,
yeah, I feel like I do.
14 years ago, I don't care.
And this is funny because anybody in my family that would hear me talk about this now, they know I am one of the most risk-averse people ever. So, like, look
This is
at
why it's
that.
my favorite thing to talk to you about. Because I can feel you sweating, even though this was a
Yeah.
decision from 2009.
Yeah, it was very long ago. And so, you know, but I had that lifeline, and I knew that at least that one client would be for
Yeah.
at least multiple years in the beginning, just because of the foundational work that had to be done to get their association set up and some of the issues they wanted to advocate for. But I will say it was a little scary because I had a dip in my income.
Yeah.
And I had to, you know, tighten things up a bit, and also had to plan for the overhead, which is, you know, every quarter you got to pay those self-employment taxes and all that jazz. You got to save all your receipts and make sure you're documenting that for when tax time comes. So I became my own HR person. I became my own accountant. I had to learn QuickBooks pretty fast.
And all the stuff that was, whenever you were with AT&T, you were just having to do the lobby.
That's it.
And now you still have to do the lobby, but you have to do the HR, and you have to do the taxes, and you got to do the marketing, and you got to do the
mileage laws, which was a pain. I don't know if anybody drives as part of your business, but man, mileage logs. So, you know, the spreadsheets. So anyway, yes, I mean, it came with a whole ball of wax, but I will say it was scary, but it was also very rewarding and fulfilling, knowing that I was self-employed. I was my own boss. And in a way, I could set my own schedule. And, I mean, really the sky was the limit as far as like potential revenues, right? Yeah. And so that first year or so was a little scary because I did have to tighten the belt a good bit. And just for y'all's knowledge, the way that consulting works is, I mean, you have to go out there and you're constantly in sales mode at the same time that you're having to satisfy your current book of business, your current clients. No. And so, you know, you're working on researching these issues, developing strategies that you want to go out and, you know, deal with the legislators on behalf of your clients. Or if it's a community relations client, you're putting together their outreach strategy. But at the same time, in the back of your mind, it's like, oh, I need more clients. And so, and the other thing too is if you're lucky in that type of business, you get a 12-month contract with a renewal clause. But come that last quarter of the year, you are beginning to sweat a little because you have to have that conversation with each of your clients. Are we renewing next year? And they're in business to make money and make a profit. They're not going to renew your contract just because you're a good person.
And in a wonderful scenario, they would maybe like stagger their renewal dates. But if everyone's operating on a calendar
year,
you've got 7 clients and they all might renew.
Yeah.
And they're all going to tell you at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, that's why I said that last quarter of the year, you start having those conversations. And some of them will say, you know what, we don't have a big issue next year, so we'll call you if we need you, but we don't want to renew for another 12 months. And you have to be ready for those contingencies as a small business owner. So, but it was rewarding. By my second year, I had matched my income on my W-2 job. And by the third year, I had doubled, more than double what I was making. But again, think about the overhead I still had to cover, and think about when you're a small business owner, you had better have, I don't know, 3 to 6, some people say 6 to 9 months worth of expenses saved up for
whatever. Yeah.
So, you know, and thankfully the business I owned, it wasn't intensive as far as like the cost to run that type of business. I basically had to pay myself and had some office supplies. But there are other types of businesses where you have licensure fees, that you have to, pay attention
You
to.
got to keep up with, and
You have,
equipment.
yeah. So I just want to say, I want to say all that to say I have a ton of respect for entrepreneurs, especially solopreneurs, because you're it. You're wearing 5 or 6 different hats at the same time, pursuing your passion, what your particular business is.
Yeah.
And I will say this: I did it for a little bit more than 3 years, and serendipity, God, you name it, but I kept intersecting with the then head of the Department of Economic Development. Because one of my clients was the Greater Lafayette Chamber of Commerce, I was advocating for pro small business issues. And we kept crossing paths. And he had a vacancy come up, the Director of Governmental Affairs position, and reached out through a third party and said, hey, would you please see if Mandi will talk to us and consider coming work for the department? And it was a tough one because I was rocking and rolling.
We had finally gotten everything moving.
I had finally gotten things rolling and moving, and I felt some security. My daughter was off in college, so I was feeling kind of good about myself. But man, the lure of W-2.
Yeah. To suddenly not have to worry about
the retirement benefits, and I just was like, okay, yep, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went to work for the State Department of Economic Development, and that turned out to be a wonderful opportunity for me. I had exposure to economic development before that.
Sure.
I served on the board of the Southwest Louisiana Economic Development entity years ago, and remained very close in that community and on the periphery. So I knew it would be something I would be able to enjoy and bring together really a lot of things that I learned.
So whenever we think about your time as, hey, an entrepreneur where I'm wearing all the hats, and like you got into it because you really liked one hat, and then you had to put on 7 more, and most of those you don't like. But there's so much that goes into being the entrepreneur, and you're right. I mean, like managing the relationships and always thinking about, I gotta get this renewal, or I gotta get this whatever. So which means that I have to be proving my value. I have to be finding pain. I have to be defining people's pain. But all those are lessons that you could then immediately bring into LED, LEDA.
Yeah.
And so are there some things that stand out when you're like, hey, I learned this in those 3.5 years, either about yourself or about things that you could bring in? What are some of those things?
Man, number one is problem solving on a dime. I mean, you really, when you're self-employed, you really don't have the luxury of mailbox money or like the checks just coming in. So if there is an issue, right then and there, you've got to fix it. You've got to. So problem solving, I really honed that skill really well as a self-employed professional for those 3+ years. Time management and efficiency. I mean, you really don't have time to waste. And I used to hate when my dad would say this, that time is money. I used to hate that, but then I started living it.
Yeah.
So I was like,
you had your own company, and it was
so
every moment.
So time management for sure. The other thing too, when you are self-employed and when that business is synonymous with you, your credibility and your reputation, man, you can't afford to let that get tainted.
Sure.
I mean,
because it walks in the door before you do.
Yeah. And so, especially in the line of work that I was doing, representing people's interests to lawmakers and to the community, but regardless of what business you're in, I mean, if you're serving, if you're in social services, I mean, if you are a tax preparer, if you provide medical transportation, if you run a child care business, I mean, your personal credibility as a business owner is very important. And then the way that you interact with and treat your clients or your customers or the general public. Other than that, budgeting was, I mean, I didn't have to budget whenever. I mean, of course, I had to run my own household budget, but now you have the household budget and you have the business budget. So that was another skill that really helped me, because whenever I went over to the Department of Economic Development, very shortly after joining the team there, I inherited a couple of teams. So all of a sudden I was responsible for multiple people and my section of the budget. And I had to, basically apply what I was doing for myself and just stick into the budget. You set a budget and do your best to stick to it.
Yeah.
If you have to adjust, then it better be a damn daggone good reason.
I think all these little things are why, yes, they're like an entrepreneurial skill, but they apply. We always talked about it. I mean, like, the idea of this skill set and this mindset is great for you running your own business. It's also great for you being an employee in any business. I mean, if you've got this, you walk into a job as one of the best employees there.
Yeah.
If you bring this with you.
Yeah.
Because you're going to look around and say, where are the inefficiencies? Where are we meeting our customers? How are we communicating with one another? How are we, because you can't unsee it. It's one of my favorite things about it. The thing is that once you are shown it, it's really difficult to pretend it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And so if you have had to run your own business, you understand the value of connecting with clients and connecting with people, and that relationships matter. And so then if you go back and work in a more traditional job, you can't pretend like that doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
You saw it.
If nothing else, too, the entrepreneurial mindset is, for anybody who is a public servant, who works for a state or local government or some quasi-government entity, we get a bad rap. And I really, that annoys me, because public servants work as hard as anybody else. We just have to live within the bureaucracy, right? There's I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed, but the entrepreneurial mindset within the confines of the law, I was able to take that with me into the Department of Economic Development. And my boss at the time, the secretary of the department, he said, look, if we can do it better, faster, more efficiently, then go do it. So long as it's within the rules and regs that we're allowed in state government. And so, I mean, Louisiana Economic Development is really held up still to this day as one of the best and most high functioning state agencies, because we operate at the speed of business. So if a small business needs help, or if a big business needs help, they don't have time to wait 2 months for you to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so, that agency was one I was very proud to work for. But it's because we were allowed to be entrepreneurial within the confines of state law. There are things you got to dot I's, cross T's. You can't just, for example, for procurement, if you have your own business, if you want to buy something from somebody, you just go buy it. V knows this. If you work for a government entity, if they want to go buy something, they've got to do a procurement process. So anyway, the entrepreneurial mindset, like you said, you can't unsee it. Once you've lived it, you take it with you wherever you go. And we do that at LEDA till this day. My team knows this. If somebody reaches out to us for assistance, within 24 hours, at least acknowledge the request. And if we don't have the answer, let them know that we're working on it. And give them what we can. And so, that entrepreneurial mind frame, I wish it could be dispersed everywhere. But yeah, I got a lot of respect for entrepreneurs though. And look, I want to share this too. My risk aversion, I don't want that to rub off on anybody in here. If you're passionate about having your own business, go do it. The entrepreneurs make the world go round. Seriously.
Well, I think that, we've been, I don't know, from a very nerdy standpoint, a lot of comparing this idea of like innovation and how innovation really drives all these things, job growth, but I don't know, like for me that's a giant question mark, because like the innovation is great. Innovation is, it's going to be cold this winter, I'm going to stack all this wood, and I'm going to find the best trees to burn, and I'm going to find the best, but somebody's got to light the match. Like somebody has to do the action. Yeah. And so, while, hey, like we need to, maybe become more innovative and things like that, we got to make more entrepreneurs. Like we got to make more people who are going to, all right, we have studied it, we've invented things, it's time to do something with it. Which is why, whether it's programs like these, and even if people who aren't in programs like these, who are just out there figuring it out. And I loved the discussion, or you mentioning the problem solving. Mm-hmm. One of our kids' teachers talked about like your figure it out brain. Mm-hmm. Like you got to tap into your figure it out brain, mm-hmm. because whatever you thought it was going to be, it's not that. And so, but what do? Like if something happens, you got to fix it. Well, I don't know how to fix it. What? Figure it out. Like we can't access this blah blah blah. Okay, well, figure it out. And sometimes figuring out obviously involves calling professionals and things like that. If you've got a busted pipe in your house, maybe you don't figure it out. Like maybe you call someone who knows what they're doing. But there are so many things I think where it's interesting, because I think that there are situations, and probably all of you can think of some, where maybe you've worked with people where things go off the rails a little bit and they paralyze. I mean, they've got, well, we can't do it because this one little thing is not what we thought it was going to be. Yeah. And when you own your own small business, that's not an option. Yeah. Like, there's not an option of like, well, this was here and not here. Yeah. Do you want the job or not?
Yeah. And that's why I really appreciate programs such as this one, is because while you are here in your capacity as a business owner in whatever business it is that you have just started or you're about to start, or that you're on the next phase of growth and you wanted to come and get some technical guidance, but you're forming a peer network. And so when you do need to figure it out, sometimes it means pick up the phone and phone a friend. Yeah. I love that about this program and about Accelerate Northside, because what I see is organically these connections happening. And, you may be able to pick up the phone and say, look, I'm running into this issue with my accounting software. I heard that you already, learned how to use it. How do I do it? Or, I need to get a special license from the state. I heard that you know somebody that works at department so-and-so. Can you give me that connection? Or Jonathan, or Kevin, or somebody at LEDA. If nothing else, if you don't walk away with anything else out of this program, please walk away with human connections that you can tap into in the future to help your business grow, or really just to help you grow as a person, as a resourceful person.
Yeah, so. I mean, your community becomes so important, either when you're already running your own business or you're thinking about running your own business. Who you start to surround yourself with. Some of it is, and we've mentioned it in previous discussions. I mean, sometimes you got to find new friends, and that is what it is. I mean, like you need people who understand, why are you still working at 10 p.m.? You need people who understand, what do you mean you're doing something on a Saturday? Yeah. You need people who understand, well, why can't you do X, Y, Z? Well, what do you mean you have another pop-up shop to go to? Like, I gotta live. Like, this is how this works, and I have to make some strategic decisions, and this is what I'm trying to do with my life. And sometimes not everyone understands it, and that's fine. But finding more people.
Charles tells that story really well. Yeah. Charles Edwards, he's got a great story. And if you have people around you that don't believe in what you're trying to do, you might just need to check that, especially if it's something you're passionate about and you're good at, and you have a pathway to make it economically feasible. Don't let anybody talk you out of pursuing those goals. And look, the one thing for me, having checked the box, been there, done that, did the entrepreneurial thing, I'm telling you, I know I would have regretted it to this day had I not done it.
Yeah.
Had I not just gone out there and just said, all right, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I would still be looking back. But I learned a lot from it. There are lessons I learned. There are skills I learned that I still use till this day in my current 8 to 5, 8 to 8.
Yeah,
day job.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I'm usually the last one. The cleaning lady's like, Miss Mandy, you want me to turn the light out? Yes, ma'am. So, but yeah, I mean, it is definitely rewarding to be an entrepreneur. And I will tell you, whether it is your sole source of revenue or if it's a side gig or something that you're passionate about, if nothing else good came out of the pandemic, people began to sit back and say, you know what kind of life do I want for myself? How do I prioritize my self-care and the way that I balance my work and my life living? And some people said, well, it means I'm leaving this day job, where I'm like a hamster on a wheel, and I'm just going to go and hustle and, live my own life and have my flexibility and make my income the way I want to make it.
Absolutely.
And some people said, well, I'm going to have a side gig. I need the stability. I need the healthcare coverage, but I want this side gig and I'm just going to go pursue it. And I really, that's one thing good that I could say, looking back on the pandemic, just interacting with a lot of people.
Yeah.
At the time I was working for state government, and we had started a number of programs to support small businesses at that time, like e-commerce, grants for small businesses, although those have all dried up. But I mean, it was a fun time to just see people dreaming and then just go and do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this idea of, the most important day of your life is the day that you decide why you were born. And then the second most important day is that you decide it's your life. Like it's not someone else's and it's yours to create.
Yeah.
And for so many people, it gets lumped into our whole identity gets lumped into what we do rather than who we are. And whenever you can find the ability to align who you are with what you do, whether it's a full-time job or a side hustle or a volunteer or whatever, because one, everything needs to get done. In the world, and it's understandable that, hey, maybe the thing that I'm called to do, but I want to make more money than that, and so, hey, well, then maybe it's a side hustle that, that you also add on other things and what it might be. When we look at what I love about talking to you and the support that LEDA gives is the attention that you're willing to give to smaller businesses. Just the realization that, 85% of the companies in the country are 5 to 6 employees or smaller. I mean, so most of what's going on is quote unquote small business. And if you look at, hey, if these accelerator programs over 3 or 4 years are going to create 100, 200, 300 jobs, like that's as impressive as one company coming in and giving 300 jobs, and these might be more lasting than something that might just be sort of pop in and out. And so, that I think has been such a space of gratitude for us.
Yeah, I will tell you, I gained a newfound appreciation for small business when I went to work for Louisiana Economic Development and was promoted to assistant secretary and took on responsibility for the small business team, the community relations team, and the public policy team. And it didn't sit well that small business was consistently deprioritized or kind of a lower priority. And with the work that they were doing, not just quality, but not just quantity, I'm sorry, but quality. So not, hey, we helped 200 small businesses this year. No, we helped X small businesses increase their revenues and grow their employee base from point A to point B. Or we helped, I don't know, 200 businesses survive past that treacherous 3-year mark.
Yeah.
And now they're thriving, and then they're on to their next phase of growth. And so, I stirred it up a little bit, and we sort of pulled the small business team out of the shadows at the department at the time. And I really kind of take that same mindset with me here. I brought it with me here to LEDA. When I got there, we did a first ever strategic plan, and right up there in priority alongside business recruitment and retention is small business development, small business support and development.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers are what they are.
Yeah.
A significant number of businesses and corporations. You think corporation, you think like big companies, but I mean, an LLC is a corporation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what the C's for.
So
I mean, like,
a significant number of businesses that provide goods and services are small businesses, and not the SBA's definition of small businesses, but truly micro businesses, small businesses. And, collectively, small businesses have a significant impact. And you got to have both. You're going to have these very large companies that are multinational, multi-state businesses. Great, but a lot of their suppliers are small businesses.
Absolutely, and just whenever something is like that, it's when you see at how towns built up. You have like a large employer, but people need housing, and people need housing. They need electricians and plumbers and AC people, and they got to eat somewhere, and they got to go to grocery shopping somewhere, and they got to. So you just start to level all of these, and the vast majority of all of that is small business.
Yeah,
that's where
it's definitely, and I like it. I like making sure people understand that it is like a virtuous cycle, because I mean, look, America was built on small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, before currency, there was bartering, and so hey, I have milk, you might have eggs, then you had currency, and then so everything started from just a really small or micro business type of system. And, yes, we have these companies that have grown to be so large, and they're serving, multiple countries, multiple states. They're serving the government. And in a sense, some of those have to be big, to be able to meet the needs that are out there. But small businesses have a very important role to play in our economy. And I mean, especially at the community level.
Yeah.
I think about walking up and down downtown Lafayette, or taking a drive down Moss Street. That's all small businesses, except for a couple of banks, right?
Yeah.
The big the banks, that have a presence everywhere. But it's small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
It's your seamstress, it's your restaurateur, it's the daycare owner. These are small businesses, and I never take small businesses for granted.
Yeah.
And I cringe when people try to make it a big business versus small business kind of thing, because you've got to have it. It all works together.
There has to be a relationship. It has to be.
It has to be a connection and a relationship. And I think it's important. The other thing too, economic mobility. when I think about people from disadvantaged backgrounds, if you think about like generations of people from disadvantaged backgrounds, you may never fathom being an entrepreneur or having your own business. Like
Sure.
that's way out there. That's for those other people. But it is a true pathway to enhance economic mobility. Like
Absolutely.
if someone is able to, get that secret sauce in a bottle, marry up their passion with a truly successful income producing venture, like you're really looking at enhancing your economic opportunity. And then you have that next generation saying, oh, well, my mom had her own
And
business.
so many times,
Maybe
I think
I
we
could
just
do it.
don't do a good enough job teaching how to spot it.
Yeah.
Because it's, well, I don't know anyone who's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And yet Aunt Pat has been doing this thing, but I've only seen her as my aunt.
Yeah.
I've never seen her as, she ran a floral shop for
Yeah.
25 years.
Yeah.
She ran her own business.
Yeah.
But if she's always just your aunt or always just your uncle or always just,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even mom and dad, like, oh, well, like mom and dad did this, but then they also did these other things because we needed money.
Yeah.
And they made it work. But if you don't think about it as like, no, that was all entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And so this idea that, well, we're not an entrepreneur is only because we haven't been looking at ourselves like
Right.
that.
Right. Yeah. And I think about, for a while, my dad, when I was growing up, he ran his own truck,
Yeah.
an 18-wheeler truck driver.
Yeah.
He was an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely.
And and so or he then also had an insurance adjustment business. He didn't have employees, but like he was self-employed. And like you said, you don't know or think about it as entrepreneurship. And so, I really believe that entrepreneurship is a pathway to enhance economic opportunity and economic mobility. And look, I'm the first one to say it's not for everybody. Okay. That's one thing I believe in, keeping it real, because we do get people, they'll come to LEDA, or whenever I was working for the state, we would get the occasional call and saying, oh, I want to start my own business. And okay, why? Tell me what is it? And the person would have no connection to that particular craft.
Sure.
They just thought it was cool to want to start their own business. And so, we have to sit down sometimes and have those tough conversations and say, look, this is the reality of having your own business. And if your heart is not in it, it's going to be a tough roadway.
Yeah.
Because even when your heart is in it, it's a tough roadway. And so anyway, it's not for everyone, but I will say it is definitely a pathway to boost your economic opportunity.
Absolutely.
Because, you have, once you learn how to ride the bike, and you've gotten the revenues to cover your overhead, and now you're making lanyard, like, that's a good feeling.
Yeah.
That is a
feeling
good
is,
feeling.
Yeah. And that feeling is, and that's what people find out, is like you make your first sale and you're just like, yep, this was awesome.
Yeah.
Let me do this 100 more times.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much.
Yes.
I looked down and I was like, oh, it's already time to wrap up. But we can do one or two questions if anyone's got something from people who are here. Otherwise, we will wrap up everything and continue on our journey.
How many are already currently business owners? And then how many are thinking about it? Okay. Everybody from Lafayette. We have people from outside of Lafayette Parish. We got people from other parishes. Okay. What parish are you from?
You guys keep talking. I'm just going to talk to people
online.
Really? I'll see you guys later.
You drove all the way from Alexandria?